Spokesman for opposition leader Alexei Navalny says his whereabouts are unknown.
We're learning that jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is missing from prison.
Alexei Navalny went missing. One day, his lawyers came to see him in prison, and he was gone. The following day, he didn't show up at a scheduled court hearing. For 20 days that felt never-ending, we had no clue about Navalny's whereabouts. Neither his lawyers nor relatives could locate him. We didn't know if he was alive or dead. 3 nerve-wracking weeks later, we found him in one of the most remote places in Russia, a penal colony in a village called Kharv. The prison goes by the name Polar Wolf. Here it is on the map, past the Arctic Circle in the Yamal-Nenets region in northern Siberia, where it snows for 9 months a year and the temperature goes above 10 degrees only in July and August. This prison was created during one of Stalin's deadly mega-projects, the Transpolar Main Line, a railroad built by Gulag prisoners that was supposed to connect the European part of Russia with ports in Siberia. But it was never completed. Now the abandoned project is called the Dead Road. But the prison camps are still there. You're probably wondering, how can a person who is already in prison go missing? Turns out, easily. If you're inconvenient to Putin, if you're his personal enemy, you will not only be imprisoned, but kidnapped. Alexei was last seen on December 5th. That day, his lawyers went to visit him at the penal colony in the Vladimir region, where Navalny had been serving his sentence. The next day, December 6th, the lawyers were not allowed in. On December 7th, Navalny was supposed to attend a court hearing via video link directly from the prison. The judge came, the prosecutor came, the lawyers showed up, but instead of Navalny, there was a black screen. The colony administration said that they couldn't connect due to a power outage. The following day, after Navalny went missing, we started to understand what was going on. On December 8th, Putin announced in the Kremlin that he would once again be running for president.
Хотел бы просить вас принять участие в этих выборах. Вы наш президент, мы ваша команда. Вы нужны нам, вы нужны России.
Сейчас такое время, когда нужно принимать решения. Я буду баллотироваться.
Единогласно! Ура!
Navalny's disappearance just before the beginning of the presidential campaign was most likely planned. 2 months ago, 3 of his lawyers were jailed. Then Alexei stopped receiving letters from his team, his supporters, and even his family. The prison censors burned them on a special metal plate. Since then, he has been in complete isolation. Nevertheless, we launched our own anti-Putin and anti-war campaign. We secretly put up billboards in major Russian cities with a QR code leading to a website that says Russia without Putin. Quite predictably, the presidential administration wasn't too pleased with this, and the one who's paying the price is Navalny. As we searched for Alexei, it was impossible to ignore that he was in the hands of the same people who already tried to kill him in August 2020. Back then, after being poisoned with Novichok, Alexei decided to return to Russia, where he was immediately arrested and jailed. Almost 3 years have passed since then. 3 years of illegal confinement and torture. They kept Navalny from sleeping at night. Once an hour, he was woken up with a torch and forced to identify himself on camera. His back pain increased. At some point, he was unable to walk. In order to see a doctor, Navalny had to go on hunger strike for 24 days. He lost 19 kilograms. In March 2022, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine underway, Navalny was sentenced to another 9 years in a high-security prison. He used every public court session to speak out against the war. And he faced consequences. In August 2022, he was put in a punishment cell, a 2 by 3 meter concrete box. Prisoners are not supposed to spend more than 15 days in such cells. Longer is illegal. Alexei spent 266 days there. They gave him a cellmate, a sick man who they hadn't let shower for days. When Alexei got sick, they again refused to give him medication or let him see a doctor. A constantly screaming, mentally ill person was put in the cell across the hall, and they played the same Putin speech on the prison radio every night. These are clear examples of torture and the violation of basic human rights. They illegally cancelled visits and calls from Navalny's family, they violated his attorney-client privilege, and then, eventually, they arrested his lawyers, who are now facing up to 6 years for simply doing their job defending Alexei. This sends a clear message. Defending anyone who opposes Putin is now a crime. All the arrested lawyers have kids. Igor Sergunin is a single dad. Alexei Liptser had a child only 2 years ago, and Vadim Kobzev, who has been defending Navalny for more than 10 years, has 3 children under 18. The lawyers are charged with assisting Navalny's extremist activities, for which he was recently given another 19-year sentence. To serve it, he was supposed to be transferred to a new colony with an even stricter regime. For several weeks, the Federal Penitentiary Service ignored all requests about Navalny's whereabouts, not only from his relatives, but even from the courts. Meanwhile, we did everything possible to find him. There are 26 high-security prisons in Russia where he could have been sent. We wrote more than 600 requests to them to transfer prisons to pre-trial detention centers and hospitals. We announced a reward for information about Alexei's whereabouts. We sent dozens of official complaints. A demand to make Alexei's location public was sent by the EU top diplomat, Josep Borrell, a representative of the US State Department, members of the European Parliament, and human rights organizations like Amnesty International. We also appealed to the UN Human Rights Committee, and they sent Russia an urgent request to disclose Navalny's location and confirm that he is alive. Russia never responded. There is a legal term for what happened. It is called enforced disappearance. Essentially, Navalny was abducted, and responsibility for this lies with Vladimir Putin. Now that Alexei has been found, it is clear that this operation was planned in advance. In spring 2023, the head of the Federal Penitentiary Service went to the Polar Wolf colony and carried out a detailed inspection. Alexei's route to the prison was needlessly long and complicated. First Vladimir, then Moscow, then Chelyabinsk, from there to Yekaterinburg, then Kiev, then Vorkuta, and finally Kharkiv. No one was supposed to know where Navalny was until at least February. Even now, when we have managed to locate Alexei using our sources, the Supreme Court continues to insist that it does not know where Navalny is. This is how Vladimir Putin decided to isolate Alexei ahead of the presidential election. To reach Navalny, lawyers from Moscow now have to travel 2 days by train or take a plane to Selikhard, cross the Ob River on ice in winter or by ferry in summer, and then drive another 50 kilometers across the permafrost. In winter, temperatures drop to minus 40 degrees and there are only 2 or 3 hours of dim light interrupting the polar night. In summer, mosquitoes and midges fill the air. This is where serial killers, dangerous repeat offenders, and political prisoners get sent. Russia's northernmost high-security prison. For many people in our country, Alexei Navalny symbolizes hope for the future of Russia. And Putin has once again tried to hide that future from us. Fortunately, this time he failed.